Good morning. We're waiting for technology here, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. So if you will all join me as I light the chalice and we say our opening words. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth and the fire of love that calls us to work for justice. And I'm not my technology in lighting the chalice is challenged. And we practiced. Okay? I have an alternative.
Welcome. I'm Katie Seifert, the Director of Music Ministries here, and it is so nice to see your lovely faces in person, and later I'll pop in to see you online as well. We're going to join in singing our first hymn with our children present with us this morning. And I invite you, if you are in the sanctuary with us, to limit to a hum, so you can hum along. And if you are online, feel free to sing. But whether you're in person or online, you can move your body. So I invite you to also dance and feel the music. This song is When the Spirit Says Do. I invite you to use this song to move your body and really step into what does it feel like to do what Spirit says to do, to be aligned with that inner voice. So go ahead and stand up wherever you're at. If you're alone or if you're with loved ones, stand up. I know it's not the same as dancing together in the sanctuary, but it's okay. It might feel awkward, but it's okay. It's a good practice to lean into what may feel uncomfortable, but what we know is right within ourselves. You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you got to dance. Oh Lord, you got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You gotta sing what the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. Oh Lord, you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You gotta do
a private chat, but we asked, during the service, during the songs, all that jazz, that you don't post a public chat. You may contact pastoral care at pastoralcare@vuu.org. Now I'm coming in threes, okay? All good things. Okay. Oh. All right, I am going to introduce the Time for All Ages now. So as today's service is about what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist, I will share this book to remind us what's most important in that service. All right, Waiting for the Biblioburro by Monica Brown. On a hill behind a tree, I don't know if I should talk over myself. Okay, on a hill behind a tree, there is a house. In the house, there is a bed, and on the bed, there is a little girl named Anna, fast asleep, dreaming about the world outside and beyond the hill. I promise we're not this chaotic usually, just today. When Anna wakes up to the sound of the rooster, her parents are busy tending to the farm and garden. Thank you. Anna has read her book, her only book, so many times she knows it by heart. The book was a gift from her teacher for working so hard and for all her reading and writing. But last fall, her teacher moved far away, and now there is no one to teach Anna and the other children in her village. I need a sign from someone. You guys all look lovely. Thank you for coming today. Okay, I think I'm gonna make an exit. Thank you for listening to me briefly. I'm back, y'all. If the children could please join us on the patio, walk as quietly as possible, and meet your teacher and your classmates.
Good morning. If I echo, it's okay. I am Rosalind Hawkins, and it is my privilege to welcome you to our service today in person and all of you online via Zoom. As we maneuver through the duality of space to accommodate those in person as well as those in the virtual world, our desire for inclusiveness remains. From wherever you have joined us, from whatever faith tradition you come, regardless of your background, race, sexual orientation, or economic capacity, there's a welcome space for you here. We are fortunate to have our interim minister, Fred Wooten, in the pulpit today and here in person. His sermon is titled, "What Do You Use Do?" Perhaps this is an easier question to answer than the more complex concept of what we believe. Well, I asked myself, what do I do as a UU? And in preparing for today's service, I found my answer. I went to my computer, opened Google, and looked for references. I opened my mind and heart to learning about something new. I sought definition, truth, and understanding outside of what I thought I knew. I did as the opening paragraphs of the UUA website states, as follows. In Unitarian Universalism, you can bring your whole self, your full identity, your questioning mind, your expansive heart. Together, we create a force more powerful than one person or one belief system. As Unitarian Universalists, we do not have to check our personal background and beliefs at the door. We join together on a journey that honors everywhere we've been before. Our beliefs are diverse and inclusive. We have no shared creed. Our shared covenant, our 7 principles, supports the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. That's what UUs are. It is in that spirit I ask you to join me in recognizing Intersex Awareness Day on October 26th. What is that, you ask? It is the recognition of those born with both male and female genitals. Sean Sophia Wall, an intersex activist and artist and writer, explains, I arrived in the world with ambiguous genitalia and undescended testes. The doctors did not know how I should be assigned, but decided that I had what's known as testicular feminization syndrome, and now known as androgen insensitivity syndrome, AIS. She was subsequently given the gender of female. Now identifying as male, he further explains, as a society, we have codified which bodies are normal and protected. Black, Indigenous, Latinx bodies are more likely to be profiled, incarcerated, and deported. Historically and at present, forced sterilization has affected Black and Latina mothers on welfare and incarcerated women. For people born with medically diagnosed non-normative bodies, such as those born intersex, those people are subjected to medically unnecessary invasive genital surgeries that often leave behind physical and emotional scars. Unfortunately, the system in which we are living has chosen who will live with safety and those who will live with chaos, unquote. Despite telling me that as I am not enough as a man, a Black person, a queer person, or an intersex person, I am determined to create a home in my body where I feel safe and loved. By doing that, I create space for other intersex people of color to exist in a world that does not love them or is not ready for their greatness. Intersex Awareness Day is an international day of grassroots actions to end shame, secrecy, and unwanted genital cosmetic surgeries on intersex children. The day also provides an opportunity for reflection and political action. Between October 26th and November 8th, intersex organizations bring attention to the challenges intersex individuals face. This week culminates in Intersex Day of Remembrance, also known as the Intersex Solidarity Day. On November 8th, the birthday of Herculine Barbin, born in 1838 in France. This isn't new. Born intersex and classified as female, she unlawfully fell in love with another woman. She was forced to live as a man because of a judge's orders after a doctor found her to be intersex and her homosexual behaviors were brought forth. Upon this legal change of her sex, Barbin's name also changed, and she was referred to as either Camille or Abel. In 1868, Barbin committed suicide due to her poverty, gender, and sexuality troubles, and the false persona she was forced to maintain. While I do not have the statistics on how many children or adults are affected, my research shows that countries from Africa to Australia and many in between have movements to recognize this unique group of individuals. Like minorities in most categories, they have been and remain a group targeted for being different. Those we can't put in concrete terms or give some normative become our rejected. If we are to live true to our principles, we need to be a voice that reminds our friends and neighbors of the humanity of our brethren born just as we are, but with physical features that do not mirror the norm of sexuality, but are just as we are in every other way. Social justice, in my estimation, is another way of saying recognition of equity and treatment for all Earth's human creatures in commune with the earth we share. Can we put aside our biases to see each individual as an important part of the collective without judgment of physical characteristics, seen or unseen? Let it be so. And now your question to ponder. What will you do as a UU? I welcome you to VUU congregation. And after the offering, which Fred will initiate, please join with the music, that universal language that builds a bridge where words sometimes cannot.
Well, thank you, Roz, bringing something we didn't know in front of us, which is part of our UU way, which is, if I don't know it, I'd better learn fast. And you did that, thank you. Just for those of you who are on Zoom, we were climbing a bit of a technological mountain while we were trying to do the Time for All Ages, and we will continue to discover new hills and new valleys in this new hybrid world of ours. We are sorry you didn't get everything you were looking for, but we're getting better at it in new ways every week. But let's talk about the offering. The offering is the reality that we are better together than we are apart. That's really what it comes down to. Because we can all drop a quarter in this box or send in the little check, whether it's to K-Bach or whether it's to some favorite group that you love around here. But if you want to make an impact, we have to band together. That's always the way it's been. That's why you exist. Not just so you personally can feel good, so that we collectively can do good. And your offering is the way we sustain the operation that makes that possible. Keeps the lights on, keeps the piano tuned, keeps me paid, and helps you solidify ideas into actions. So you're really giving back to yourself. That's what you're doing. You're making your voice louder when you put money in the pot. You are making your arm stronger. You're making your values louder. So you're not losing anything. In fact, you're investing. Wasn't that the old joke? Someone was saying, I know Jesus saves, but Moses invests. We are not in the saving business. We're in the investing business. Investing in a world that we know could be the world that you want. So I want you to dig down now, wherever that digging place is, whether it's a purse or a pocket, whether it's a phone or a credit card. And I want that slide, if it isn't already there, slip that slide up that says you can text, you can click, you can email, you can telephone, you can write, you can drop by, you can send smoke signals. I will do whatever it takes to make sure your voice gets heard. And so as the plates go passing merrily among you, our dear Katie will help us lift our hearts as well as our pockets into life.
Well, now is our time of centering. I know we are still collecting offering, but I wanted to start by sharing that I have this belief that this hour that we come together intentionally is always sacred, even if that includes technical difficulties. I found the technical difficulties to be especially mirroring personally and how my week has been. Many nights I was up with thoughts upon thoughts over other thoughts, processing things in my life, thinking about all the to-dos I had upon me. And it's a good reminder of how important it is to center, to return to the breath, so that we're not reactionary, but we're intentional, like our 1 week Sunday worship service, that we intend to come together and connect to one another, to something greater than just our mind and our body. This song I chose, honestly, because it was easy enough to do last minute, but it's also so perfect. It's meditation on breathing, and it's an invitation to do just that, to breathe, connect to that breath that centers us. And the intention is to breathe in peace so that we can breathe out love. So let's do that. Let's release the morning technologies we've all encountered and come into that centered place. Let's take one big breath together, breathing in and release out. I invite you to hum along, to sing along, to breathe intentionally. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Continue with that. In, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace.
when I breathe out. I'll breathe out a love when I breathe in. I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
By definition, a prayer is always a request because the word pray means please. Like, pray tell me. It means please. And of course, that goes back to a larger unit. If you please, if it pleases you to do this. If you're in France, you don't just say, merci beaucoup. You say, je vous remercie. I hope that you are feeling so inclined. So when we pray, what we're asking is, what would please you, not me? I don't know about you, but when you have a little grandson, which I do, everything you do is about making them laugh. You find a way to giggle, tickle, make faces you would never make in front of other adults. Stick out your tongue, which offends my wife terribly. But if the baby smiles, I have pleased him, and my day is magnificent. And here's the cool part, everybody. You're still 4 months old. The most wonderful part about growing old is I'm all the ages I ever was. I didn't stop being 60 now that I'm 68 or 50. And we all know how a piece of music on the radio or in a mall can send us back to being 16 like that. So, where is your inner 4-month-old? That's who I would like to please. What is it that makes you laugh? Or a 1-year-old in the case of dear Gavin, who was our house baby. If it please, what can I do to make you smile, to relieve a moment of weight or burden? Because they'll be back. One of the good things I know is that sadness and worry will never hide for long. But we can make them go away for a moment and remind us that happiness and joy are just as available. What is it that will make you laugh? Should I stick out my tongue? Speak baby language to you? I saw that, Anne. And I'm smiling. Let us treat each other as the infants we always are, worthy of being pleased, delighted, whose laughter is the salvation of the world. And now we have more special music. Although technology may trip us up again, that music will be wonderful.
The promise of and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. We are answering to the call of love.
Well, if it's any consolation to the people here in the room, and you're all beautiful, our friends on Zoom are not experiencing the same glitches we are. I told you you were a studio audience, and you are. So, actually, I'm going to be saying something relevant to this in a few minutes, but I'll start where I planned. As a New Yorker, for over a decade, I have a right to tell two bad jokes. The first one you already know. The visitor to town, lost amid the canyons and crowds of Midtown, steps into a bodega, that's the New York term for a mom and pop store that sells a little of everything, and asks for help. "Pardon me," he says to the old man behind the counter, "but how do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And you know the answer. Everybody knows the answer. Practice, my boy. Practice. You had to hear that old joke to understand this one. A visitor to town, lost amid the crowds and canyons, goes into a bodega and asks the old man behind the counter, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" To which the man replies, "I've been waiting for you my whole life." When I was about 7, my folks thought it time to me to learn a musical instrument, and so I began that most wretched of experiences, violin lessons. It was exciting at first, but it became less and less so. Holding the thing is hard, and your arm aches in that position for a long time, and the sounds I made were closer to a frightened cat than to music. It's a very steep hill to climb to turn into a violinist, and practice did not flatten that hill very much at all. Practice was at best tedious, at worst torture. No wonder I stopped. By the time I was 17 or 18, things had changed. I had abandoned the violin, as you might presume, but I had taken up the trombone for the school band, and despite being an autodidact, had made real progress and was now in the band. I was playing the baritone, and I was invited to be in the all-city band, and I was so excited about music that was going to be my major in college. And I began serious lessons there in college. These were also hard and tedious, but they rewarded me sooner with greater skill, and I felt the effort was paying off. Piano lessons were required, and in 3 years I discovered I was pretty good. And my teacher had me working on a Beethoven sonata and a Chopin etude. Now, I was not headed for anyone's solo career. That was never my desire. But I found the experience of getting better and better very rewarding. And so practice was something I didn't avoid. I looked forward to it. I found excuses to practice. I want you to hold on to that. I'll get to it at the end. About a decade into my clergy career, I began to hear people talk about something called spirituality. I heard it from lay people as something missing in church and life, and I did not comprehend it at all. I was told that my sermons needed to be more spiritual, less dry and intellectual. They wanted fewer hymns written by people named Bach and more songs created by people named Cat Stevens and meditations, not prayers, with dreamlike images and lots of breathing. At the time, it felt like they were looking for a kind of spiritual special sauce to make their lives more fragrant and flavorful. And truth to tell, it was in many respects just that, religious glitter to add to their lives. In case you haven't noticed, I don't glitter. For some time, I went from thinking it all a bunch of kumbaya and woo-woo to thinking, on the other hand, that maybe I was unable to grasp this thing that so many wanted in their lives. I felt as though I was colorblind and did not know it. And it turns out I was right on both counts. There is a fair amount of huckster spirituality out there, evident in the abundance of books that will tell you how to have a more spiritual and meaningful life, provided you pay $15.95 for it on Amazon and download it to your Kindle. But there is also something genuine and important about this longing people identify as spirituality. Last week, I mentioned Paul Tillich, a very intellectual teacher to James Luther Adams, our great scholar, whose guiding principles I shared last week as the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. But part of the answer actually comes from that intellectual guy, Tillich. One of his great insights is that we humans feel divided between our essential and actual selves, what we hope to be and what we actually are. We want more from our lives than existing. That longing is what we identify as spirituality. Adams's 5 smooth stones kind of lay out the playing field that we operate on. They say where the out of bounds are, where the end zones are. But how to get from one end of the field to the other, that's not what he addresses. In other religions, there's a good playbook. You do this ritual on that day in this way. You say these prayers in this fashion. You read those books and say those words, and you'll get to the goal. Many religions go even further. You eat this and not that, wear this and not that, marry this person, not that person. And for those who adhere to it, it gives their life meaning and structure and purpose. It really does satisfy. But there are those for whom such, shall we say, off-the-rack religion just doesn't work. We want to have ours bespoke. We want to be able to make our own spiritual clothing, cook our own spiritual meals. But no one tells us how. Yes, you are free to think and do whatever you want, but you're also on your own to find out how to do it. No one will tell you. No one will help you with a guidebook that gets you from here to there. There's no handbook that will get you from tenderfoot to Eagle Scout. There's no clear way to go and put body and soul together, as I put it last week. So no wonder there are all those books out there for everyone else, and we have ours too. There are books, web pages, and courses out there in UU land, all promoting spiritual practices. They range from journaling, dream work, yoga, chanting, labyrinths, almost one practice for every UU. And they all work for at least one or more people. But that overlooks one of the challenges. The purpose of spiritual practices is not just to unify your body and soul, but to unify our body and soul. The things we do together as well as the things we do apart. We have a truly Trader Joe marketplace of things you can do at home on your own, but we don't clearly understand what we do together of a spiritual nature, which is perhaps why it is often easier for us to default to politics, because that's the one thing that we can all talk about together without aggravating everyone else. Our historic suspicion of being told what to do works against collective spiritual behavior. More than once I've described us as the church of "you're not the boss of me." But some of us truly need direction, which doesn't mean coercion, which means guidance. But I'm here to say, I'm going to be Joel Osteen for a moment. I have the answer. And you don't have to buy it at the store. In fact, you're already doing it, because we actually have 4 spiritual practices we've been doing all the time, except we don't call them that. But you know, maybe if we started calling them that, they would be that. Because every spiritual practice is just ordinary life done with a little glitter. Journaling is just writing things down. Meditation is just not thinking, but you're doing it on purpose. You're doing it with the intent. So you want to know about these 4 spiritual practices. Well, if there are 5 smooth stones, there are 4 spiritual practices. And if you think you're going to hear 3 things next week, you're right. The 4 spiritual practices we're all doing all the time in this congregation: worship, study, service, and sacrifice. Obviously, worship is something we do because you're here, and so are our friends Zooming in. If spiritual practice is something done routinely for your spiritual benefit, this counts, because you wouldn't be giving this time if it didn't have the possibility of helping your spirit. Let's move on to study. Study is something we do, although we'd like to think of it as religious education. And we think that the kids are the only ones doing it, but how many preachers don't slip in a couple of pithy quotes from authors we want you to read? We can no more imagine a congregation that isn't learning than we can imagine a congregation that isn't worshiping. They are essential functions to what we do. Like worship, how it is done and what is studied can vary over an immense region, but we all do it. We have a library. We have book groups. We go to classes. We want to learn. Service is also common, most often to the institution itself, which is why you have almost as many committees here as you have members. We expect cultivate and reward giving not just of your money, but of your time, of your wisdom, of your heart to this institution. After all, this entire institution is governed by you. You are co-owners of it. You elect a board who are volunteers, and they tell us staff what to do. Well, they don't tell us what to do, but they remind us when we're off track. And that is their job. And when we work out in the world, we like to go as a group, marching in a parade, doing a service project, wearing t-shirts or whatever it is, voluntarily, in service to something that we value as a community. We have just put up a new pride flag, which is now the progress flag, because it includes the colors that refer beyond LGBT and Q. That is our commitment to serve that community, which Roz illustrated in very particular detail today, and you'll hear more as we restore our commitment to the welcoming congregation journey. How many of us went on those, automotive caravans down at the state capitol and the city hall for how many weeks? Because that's what we do. We're not going to make any one of you do any particular thing, but if you're not doing one of them, chances are you're not paying attention. Finally, sacrifice. And I know that sounds like a loss, but it really means giving from yourself to support the institution and its values, just like I said at the offering. Most UU societies depend on that kind of sacrifice, the money given by you, the members and friends. Something I learned years ago, living churches never have enough money, dying churches always have plenty. It's not because of the amount of money, it's about how much they do. Living congregations always have more to do than they can get done. Dying churches have only one or two things to do, and they have plenty of money to do it. I'll talk more about why that's important next week. But we give of ourselves in ways that are beyond our presence, from our very means. We sacrifice something. And do you know what the word sacrifice literally means? It's Latin. We clergy do Latin things from time to time. Sacros meaning holy, fecit meaning to make. Sacrifice is to make holy. When you give to the church, you're consecrating that money toward something larger than consuming it. It is toward something of lasting value. You may not think of these as spiritual practices. There are no beads, there are no chants, there are no uniforms, there are no ashrams, there is no accoutrement. There's no equipment that says that's spiritual. But what makes a practice spiritual is not the way it looks, but the reason you do it. An old joke has the seminary student asking the professor if it is permitted to smoke while praying. "Of course not," snaps the professor. Then the wiseacre in the back row said, "But, sir, is it permitted to pray while smoking?" "Always." It's all about the intention, people. And I know that sounds hypocritical, but it's very real. It is the intent with which we undertake an action that gives it spiritual meaning. That dear old fellow we love to hate, the Apostle Paul, catches this when he advises, each should give as one has decided in the heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. It is when you wish to do something, wish to worship, wish to learn, desire to serve, long to sacrifice, that it becomes spiritually powerful. And therein lies the first key point when it comes to spiritual practices. It is not what you do, but why that gives it power and meaning. Legend says that when the young Martin Luther, the monk, went to Rome on pilgrimage, he was disheartened whenever he went into a church to see all the local priests saying Mass so rapidly that it took them mere minutes. And they were doing so casually that they weren't even paying attention to their words. And he was so disheartened by the lack of piety. that he doubted the sincerity of the church, and we all know where that landed. Now, in our day, we don't have priests hurrying through Mass, but I see versions of this in the polished performances of contemporary megachurches with the fog machines and the lighting and the bands and the visuals and the pressure and the beautifully rehearsed sermons, the untucked preacher who looks like he just stepped in from a pub, speaking with a whiteboard behind him, telling you the next 6 ways that you can live meaningfully. They are dazzling and impressive, like movies or concerts or theater productions. But spirituality is not about gloss or glitter or glamour or excitement. That is the lie that needs to be noticed. Just because you're excited doesn't mean it's spiritual. Genuine spiritual practices are actually pretty dull. Scales going up and down, again and again. Plain, dull, dreary, hard, unrewarding from day to day. If this Sunday was not thrilling or that technology didn't work, I don't care. There's something in it you can take away, but you have to find it. Yeah, that class told you everything you already knew, but you thought about it again. And you learned it again. Maybe that service project was tedious. Who wants to build another house, but someone is living there, even though you were bored beyond belief? And if someone once again asks for your pledge and you feel annoyed, that's okay. Because it wasn't the fault of the preacher being dull. It wasn't the fault of the leader being ordinary, the teacher repeating the same thing, the project of the pledge campaign. In a free church, you bring the purpose, you bring the intent, you bring the commitment, not me, you. And that's what makes it hard, and that's what makes it powerful. You are not followers. You are the leaders, and you lead with your intent to make it so. It was Emerson who observed that there's a crack in everything God made. Don't you love that? To which Leonard Cohen added, that's how the light gets in. And this is the second point of spiritual practices. They're not about healing you at all. They're about widening the cracks. Because when we're all healed up and happy and sassy, the light can't get in because you like yourself that much. Aren't I wonderful? Look at me being spiritual and all that. It's only when you're cracked, when you hit your head up on the sidewalk of life, when you chip your tooth, when you fall over being proud of yourself, that you think hard about reality, and that's when the light gets in. Spiritual practice is intended to trip you, to make you stumble, not to make you feel better about yourself, to remind you that you can fall down in a heartbeat, that you don't know that, or have a bag of chips. Spiritual practices that say they're going to make you wise are lying. It's like going to the gym. If you do it, it's hard. When you're done, you're tired, but over time, you become stronger. If you feel good after doing your spiritual practice, you weren't trying hard enough. And now I come to the third purpose of spiritual practices, to which I alluded at the outset. You know you're onto something of spiritual value when, despite all of that, you still do it. I wanted to practice my scales. I wanted to try my etudes because, hard as they were, every now and then I slipped, stumbled, fell forward. My fingers began to do something they couldn't do before. They pointed to the part of me that I could become, not the part of me I was. No, not a concert soloist, but someone who could at the last minute give the gift of music to others. My gift is not what I get, it's what I give that makes it spiritual. And finding out what I have to give is what I am on earth to do. And that's what spiritual practices are about. They're not about what you get, but liberating what you have to give. Worship, study, service, and sacrifice are ways, not the only ways, we find our gift to give. If you're here to get something, get out. If you're here to learn what you have to give, come closer. When we choose something difficult, continue doing something hard, when we give up our time and our money, that's a sign to you that you are finding that gift you need to give. Because most people don't know what it is. But this congregation, all congregations, in the end are here to help you find that gift you have to offer the world. It may not be what you do for a living. In most cases, it isn't. It's something else, something so basic, so elementary, that you wouldn't even think it's a gift, but there it is, if we can find a way to help you find it. Other religions use other words, other forms, other reasons, but in the end, every religion wants us to find our place in what Mary Oliver calls our place in the family of things. That's what you want. And you get to spend a lifetime doing that. Worship, study, service, and sacrifice. They have to be chosen. And we choose them because they open the crack, not because they heal it. You will not be damned if you don't do it. I can't make you. I will not wag my finger. I will not shake my head, at least while you're looking. Because none are excommunicated from this church except by the death of goodness in your heart. And that means you're just going to walk out. I don't have to let you go. You'll leave. But I'll close with a short story. 9 years ago, on the last day of my walk along Hadrian's Wall, a week-long crossing the English landscape, the road to Bowness on Solway in the west lay across a tidal basin at low tide, and if you didn't cross before the tide came in, you wouldn't get across it for another 12 hours. The blue skies and the thrilling hills from the previous days had given way to gray skies and wind-swept rain coming off the Irish Sea. By the time I got to the basin, my feet were soggy and blistered. I was drenched to the skin. Every step was a painful squish. But the tide was coming in, and so I put one foot in front of the other, and eventually found myself at the beach in a lean-to that marked the end of the trail. No one there but me, in sheets of rain, enjoying the ecstasy of having reached my goal. This is what we do here. We put one squishy, blistered foot in front of the other. We go up and down the hills, through the rain. We do it alone, we do it together. We do it singing, we do it muttering. We worship, we study, we serve, we sacrifice. But we do it because we want to. Because that is a life worth living. And if you wish to live that life, toward that light, with that hope, holding a possibility out there that is worth the effort, despite the rain and the wind and the blisters, you'll do it. And you won't be sorry you went. So come back again, rain or shine. Put foot in front of foot. Learn things you didn't know you needed to know. Find yourself giving things you didn't know you had to give. And you will be on the path. Join me. It's a journey worth taking. Amen. Katie, are you going to help us? What are we going to do? We're improvising here, people.
Well, as a community of givers of our gifts, let's start the closing of this sacred hour in song. Whether we hum or we sing, love will guide us and peace has tried us. And if the audio is chaotic, it's an invitation to allow that inner peace to stretch and to send out love to one another, to our tech crew who's handling so much as we shift and change into a hybrid service. Love will guide us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night.
Dorothy Day of the Catholic Workers Movement wrote, "People say, what is the sense of your small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel helpless. There's too much work to do." And so as we leave, and I invite Rosalind Hawkins to lead us in Extinguishing the Chalice, let's remember, we'll be back next week. There's too much work to do.
Please join me now as we say the word as we extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. And now, remember that if you're on Zoom and you want to stay in the main room, don't accept the breakout room. If you're otherwise, feel free to accept the breakout room and talk in groups. For those present, I'm going to ask you to go in peace as Fred plays us out with some traveling music. Thank you for being here today in present, now, or in Zoom land. We'll see you next week.